Welcome to a new edition of If I Ever Live to Be. Today, I'm so excited to have Ash Merchant with me today. He is founder and CEO of Lionheart Partners. Ash and I have known each other. Okay, so I've these podcasts are so like personal and selfish, right? Because I get on here and I'm like, really, I just want to ask all my questions. And you have been such a mentor to me, Ash. And I recently had Randy Hain and Brandon Smith on, of whom you both know. In fact, they are how I met you. And we were speculating, I think we've all known each other going on 15 years now.
I believe it. A lot of great memories of our time together. And we did COVID together, which was so much fun too. And if going through COVID can be fun, we certainly survived and managed to thrive during that period as well. And a lot of great memories. And I've got a big heart for Randy and Brandon both.
Yes. And I've just been having some really good time on this show, and just, I think so much of all three of you, and just all three of you have just spoken so much encouragement and guidance in my life. And so I'm just so appreciative, and I'm excited to have you here today too, Ash.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and I can't wait. I didn't know I had a prep, because I thought, I don't need a prep. I'm talking to a friend.
Yes, absolutely. we know what we're doing here. Yeah. So for those who don't know you, Ash, you do executive coaching, leadership, advisor, and speaker. Just explain to our listeners a little bit about what that means and how you do it differently at Lionheart Partners.
Sure. No, it's a great question, and I'll tell you, there's so many people that do what we do in this space, where I get my greatest joy is having a chance to work with leaders who are truly wrestling with whether it's people issues or whether it's their business issues or growth issues, and really, what I would say, get in the boat with them and just ask a lot of questions. We oftentimes say that the best coaches are not the ones that give the best advice, but they're the ones that ask the best questions. So I view it as a responsibility and really as an obligation to my clients to make sure I'm asking questions, and I'm poking around in different places, and perhaps even asking them the questions that they can't talk to their peers about, or their coworkers about, or perhaps their boss about. So I view my role and I view my work as a safe harbor for people to be able to share and wrestle issues and be vulnerable, and yet also be able to do that in a bit of a safe place too.
Right. No, I think that's a great place to start, Ash, because I'd love to ask, what are you seeing right now? So what are kind of some of the pervasive problems, maybe the common questions that you're having to ask leaders right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. There are some things that haven't changed over time. I'm a student of the generations, and I'm a proud flag bearer of Generation X, even though we are a sometimes forgotten generation. That's made us a bitter and hard people sometimes. But we are seeing, I've lost track of the number even. I think it's over 11,000 people are now in the baby boomer generation that are turning 65 every day. And not that 65 is the end of work per se,
right?
But it's definitely if people haven't already started kind of ratcheting down in their work career, 65 tends to be that age where, if they're not already outside of the workforce yet, they're definitely slowing down, or there's a glide path to what's going to happen next. So I tie that to the work that I get to do today, which is I'm spending a lot of time with teams right now around what's the baton pass going to look like, or what does it look like currently, where we have institutional knowledge and a lot of tribal knowledge that's happening in companies right now. Are we setting up our next generations of leaders to be equipped to be able to continue at the same rate, or perhaps even faster than how we're running today, and continue to be successful. And that is no small task, especially for folks that have been with organizations for a long time, and they understand what cycles look like. They understand what the ups and downs of business look like. There was a pretty interesting stat that Dr. Tim Elmore had shared some time ago, that if you are under the age of 38 or 39, maybe the number's not exactly that, but if you're in your late 30s and below, chances are pretty likely that ever since you came out into the work world, whether you went to college or whether it was your first job coming out of the gate, most of what you have known in your professional career is good times. And dealing with business disruption and business adversity, or really, really tough economic times. There's a generation of leaders right now that haven't truly had to walk through that yet. And so making sure that we're preparing that next generation, and we're also encouraging our older leaders to take the time and to be intentional and not just mail it in, but really spend intentional quality time with our younger leaders to show them about, hey, this is going to be okay, or this is where you get to exercise judgment. This is where you get to take more risk. This too shall pass. Whatever the thing is. We saw a little bit of this during COVID, and even though COVID was a disruption and a blip, and I dare not minimize what happened during COVID, because there were a lot of not great things that happened during the COVID season, but there were also businesses that went in another direction, and they managed to not only thrive, but they grew through that. I mean, you look at companies like Chick-fil-A as an example. Chick-fil-A came up with some of their best innovation born out of necessity. And what curbside service looked like, what drive-through looked like when 95+% of their dining room traffic went way down, and it virtually non-existent during COVID. And then all of a sudden, we're opening up these new channels of customers. And even though I love going into my dining room at a local Chick-fil-A, probably 90% of my traffic at a Chick-fil-A now is done through the mobile app and through the drive-through and through those different alternative means. And I think just having all that to say is, I think getting our next generation ready for, how do we navigate through difficult times? How do we navigate through lean times? How do I sit across the table from somebody and say, I'm sorry, there is no longer a job here for you, and we're moving in a different direction? Those are not easy conversations to have. And we owe it to our next set of leaders to really teach them and train them of, this is what being a general manager feels like. This is what being a strong leader looks like. It's not always cotton candy and ice cream.
Right. Oh gosh. There were so many places I could take that, Ash. I will be 39 this December.
You're a geriatric millennial. That's what they call them.
I actually really like that. I resemble that remark.
I say that to my older millennial friends just to tweak them a little bit.
Yeah, right. But I remember obviously COVID, and it definitely in the work that I do, it caused a pivot, it caused a shift. So work continued on, and just the way that we did it changed. Now I'm seeing the impacts of AI. And just like so many things, where there's an up, there's a down, there's a pro, there's a con. I'm curious as to what you're seeing with AI, because I would say, after COVID, that's probably one of the next biggest disruptors in general, but also that I am feeling directly in the marketing industry, just to kind of put a general bow on it.
Yeah, AI has become, obviously it's the hot topic of the day, and everything seems to be revolving around that. Where I have really been encouraged on AI is where I was with a client recently, and their CEO, I love the way he refers to AI. He says, we're not going to call it artificial intelligence. We're going to call it augmented intelligence.
Hmm.
Because when we start replacing the human elements of things that are
Human.
uniquely touched by humans,
Hmm.
we've lost our way.
Hmm.
And he said, I am all about augmenting our capabilities and driving greater efficiency, perhaps on lower value work or lower value tasks. But when we replace our business entirely
Yeah.
with AI, and this was a credit union whose CEO was doing this. This is a very high touch model of being in a branch and giving good face-to-face customer service. But I love the way their CEO discusses this. Is we're not going to call it artificial, because it's in addition to our most prized and valuable asset, which is our human capital. So I think the encouragement that I'm giving people right now, and the push that I'm giving folks right now, is what are those things that are unique to you? What are those things that only you can offer perspective, or a human can offer perspective on? That becomes your secret sauce.
Right.
You've met my older son, Will, and Will and I were talking about this recently, where, my encouragement to him is, look, AI will not be your competitor. The person who knows AI better than you, that will be your competitor. And I feel that way, not just with our youngest teammates and our early career folks, but I think this is for everyone. I have an opportunity to volunteer for a jobs ministry every Monday in Alpharetta, and we talk about this with some of our folks that are over 55.
Hmm.
That when you're talking about reinventing yourself and retooling for the future, AI does not have to be something that you shy away from, or you are afraid of, or you are even reticent towards embracing, because if you're able to embrace those skills and get sharp on those skills and understand that AI, like every other technology, is a tool,
Yes.
not a replacement, and it doesn't take away our own responsibility and our own obligation to think through problems critically and to come up, in some cases, with original thoughts or with just original approaches of how we would go about tackling the work, versus asking Chat GPT everything, or asking any of your large language models, whichever one you use, to solve the problem for you. I think that's where we're seeing a little bit of tension right now in the market. Is there's that terminology of work slop, AI work slop. If you just put everything in AI and then just take it at face value without shaping it, without testing it, without
Hmm.
pushing its
Hmm.
assumptions. And there's so many things that can be good that come out of AI. My encouragement and my push to leaders that today is just make sure you're using it not as a replacement of your own brain and your own thoughts,
Right.
because you can't teach AI an AI model about the human element, about the empathy element, about the just the things that make workplaces special.
Right.
Um, that's not there yet for AI, and maybe one day it will be. I don't know. You watch enough movies, you probably
Right.
you could probably be convinced that Dr. Spock actually had a heart in Star Trek. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. To quote our friends Randy and Brandon, they really do make the same caution of don't outsource your thinking.
Sure.
You cannot let the AI think for you. You have to give it inputs. I mean, and its outputs are only as good as your inputs. Yeah.
Certainly. Certainly.
So Ash, before we get into because I know this first question is going to lead into some of the other elements we wanted to talk about, but can you just kind of give a brief overview of how you got into this work? And then I know some of our previous podcast conversations, because this has been quite some time ago now, but you took a sabbatical that also led to, I would almost say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it coming out of that really repositioned and changed how you move forward in your business. So I'd love for you to share on that.
Yeah, certainly. So it's funny when you look at how time goes by so quickly.
Right.
I was looking at my calendar this month. So at the end of at the time of our taping, it's at the end of this month, we will have come back 7 years ago
Wow.
from a year-long sabbatical that we took as a family. I call it a mid-career gap year, and gap years are all the rage, and apparently we could do it at 49 too. So 7 years ago we did just that. Is I stepped away from just a terrific and satisfying and lucrative career in professional services, and decided that, my wife and I decided we were going to take our sons and do a gap year where we lived in an RV, and we traveled around the country. And you and I have talked a little bit about that story, and what that trip allowed me to do, and really what that experience allowed me to do, was take some stock in what's the work that I really enjoy doing.
Mm.
Am I able to do it on my terms? Am I able to still stay in the market and stay in the marketplace that I love dearly, and still make a mark and make a difference in the world? So as we were getting ready for reentry back to Atlanta in 2019, I started thinking more and deeper about what would reentry look like, because the door had been left wide open with my prior employer, and with there were competitor employers too that said, hey, the water is warm over here too. And I just went in a completely different direction and decided to launch Lionheart at the encouragement and really at the urging of our two friends, Randy and Brandon, as well as some others who just had the courage and I was so deeply appreciative of the push that I got, because they saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to do this kind of work, and really what was interesting was in the fall of 2019 is when things really started to sort of pick up for me professionally, and then 6 months later we find ourselves in a global pandemic, which we're doing more things via video. We're doing everything via video, actually, and as somebody who has built a career around building relationships and having a lot of in-person investment of time, I found that model incredibly disturbing and off-putting, because I thought this just doesn't feel right. There's
Right.
something weird about this. That how can you conduct commerce via video? And now all of a sudden here we are, 7 years later, where not only did we have to move and pivot during COVID, but even coming out of the COVID period, there were some certain things that just became normal. Became, whether it was Teams or Zoom or video calls or whatever those things were, that just became the way in which we communicated as a society. Now, I would tell you that I am always going to have a bias towards in-person. So even if that means spending a little bit more time to get that appointment, or perhaps even fly
Yes.
somewhere to go do that. And I had a wonderful opportunity to be in India at the end of last year, and a couple of the work-related appointments that I had over there. It was so valuable to be there in person. And could I have done both of those by video? Of course I could have. And yet the investment of time to go over there and spend time with people that I could potentially be working with made all the difference. So
I love that. Well, and let's definitely kind of talk about that, and just the freedom that I feel, and I know you would agree, that being a business owner gives you, right? And that can be to go and take those trips and have those in-person meetings. But it also ties into a lot when you have like personal things going on with family, which I know you do right now too, Ash. So I would love for us to dive into that. And just, I love the word that you use is margin, right? Having margin. And again, to bring in our friend Randy. He would love that word too, because he's always talking about margin in the calendar and giving yourself space. So I would love to hear what that means for you just right now, where you're at in career and with family in life.
Sure. I mean, listen, having two sons now, one is 21 and one is 13. You can imagine we have a tale of two cities at our house. So just the life events and the pressures that come with having two different seasons of life with my sons right now. And then on top of that, Beth and I are incredibly blessed to have our parents nearby. My parents live 15 minutes south of us, and my in-laws live 15 minutes north of us, and which is great news. And it's a huge blessing for us to have all four of them still in our life. And at the same time, they're getting older, and we're paying much closer attention to medical care and elder care and occasional hospital visit or whatever the thing might be. And I was reflecting the other day that I consider it a huge blessing and a huge honor to be able to have this kind of a business right now that allows me to have the flexibility, if I need to, take it and say, go down and check on my mom and dad, or check on my mother-in-law or my father-in-law, to be able to do that without, not that I would ever have had to have asked for permission in an old life, but when you're working in a W-2 job and you're in a corporate career and you're in other people are heavily depending on you and your contribution. It's not that it's impossible, it's just harder. And the trade-off is, in a business like mine, where I'm a solopreneur and I have outsourced resources that I work with from time to time, yes, it does take away from my ability to deliver on work, but at the same time, the trade-off is worth it. It's absolutely worth it, because when I think about this is a special season that I'm in right now, and that we're in right now, where I don't get to have a do-over when it comes to elder care, or when it comes to certain things that are happening in our family right now. And I consider it to be just an incredible blessing to have a business that allows me to do that, and also allows me to reshuffle and retool work as I need to. And I'm also, it's not lost on me either that I have clients that they get this. They absolutely understand it, because they themselves are going through some of their own life challenges right now. So it's just this mutual extension of grace, which I just find to be incredibly valuable, but also just very satisfying to be able to know that no one's going to hold it against me, knowing that if I've got an issue that I've had to take care of, and my clients have extended me plenty of grace in seasons where I've had to either reschedule or pull back on something. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for that.
Yes. It's so interesting, just the way you're experiencing that right now too, Ash, and just had me reflecting. I spoke with another really advisor that I've worked with probably since the beginning of my first iteration of the business. And it was funny because he was like, you were a kid when we first started working together. And I'm like, you know what? You're probably right, because I was in my early 20s when I started, and I'm certainly closer to 40 now that I am 20. But it's just thinking, and we said it at the beginning of the show, that for every up, there's a down, and for every pro, there's a con. I mean, I remember when I first started, we hadn't been in business long when my mother passed, and I felt like I got that one day off work. I got one day off, right? And then I basically had to get right back to it. Now, maybe at the time that helped me, because obviously that was a difficult season in life, and being busy probably helped me process that pain and that loss. But then fast forward a couple of years, when the business was a bit more established, and my father had a pulmonary embolism, and he was in the hospital for a week. Nothing else mattered more to me than sitting in that hospital room with him. And I was able to do that. I had my laptop. I worked when I could. Of course, I could stop and pay attention when the doctors came in, but I don't know of any other, as you pointed out, like a W-2 that I would have been able to, it would have been so much harder for me to be away for a full week and do my job where, I essentially ran the business from my laptop in a hospital room for a week.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Whitney, where the irony is in this is we have such great tension when it comes to cheating our employer. I mean, yes, when it comes to cheating our employer, we don't give it a second thought sometimes when it comes to cheating our family. And this is, I remember reading a book about this many, many years ago, where this concept of, if I'm going to choose to cheat, who am I going to cheat? Am I really going to cheat my family? And that is not at all a free pass for you to be a slacker at work, or for you to just completely slough off what your work responsibilities are. And this is where I think our next two generations are going to teach us a lot of things. If I have to make the choice of whether I'm going to do something a little bit less at work so that I can make sure that I've got something taken care of with my family that needs my attention, versus I'm going to still give my work 110%, even if my family only gets 60. And this was a tension. This was such a tension that I think our baby boomers grew up with, our Generation X grew up with. This is just how we powered through our early career time, as well as even well into our mid and later careers, is you out hustled and outworked your issues. And if there was anything left over in terms of time, or in terms of space, or in terms of margin, then we could allocate some of that back to our family. And frankly, I think part of that equation was backwards, because I have met, just as you have, plenty of people who they have fractured relationships, they have casualties of marriage, they have estranged children, they have just dysfunctional family dynamics that came at a cost of just such an intense focus on work. And you talk to people that have walked through that journey before, it's not the regret of, man, I wish we had worked harder so we could have gone public quicker.
Yeah.
Or it was more about, boy, those were some missed opportunities. And this mad struggle then to reclaim the time, or even to reclaim the season, if it's even possible. So that's not lost on me. And at the same time, as you know, when you are a business owner, the buck stops with you, and in the end, there is work to be done. And if it's not done, your clients are not going to be satisfied, or they're not going to be happy, or they're not going to be worse. You're not being a good steward of your clients if everything is about working in, fitting in your personal life and your family life and all that. So it's a very tight rope, and it's a very small tightrope that people have to walk, both as entrepreneurs, and I would say even as corporate leaders. Everyone makes a choice, and sometimes, unfortunately, we don't get it right.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And just kind of as I'm thinking through this, Ash, if someone's listening, because I feel like so many of my recent conversations have been about redefining success, where do we fit in the world, going back to basics, right? And maybe part of that is because of the surge of technology and AI coming out, where do we want to take it? What do we want to keep? To your point, like that word of re-entry, right? Like, how do I want to show up in this? If someone is listening and they're in that spot, or maybe they're just stuck and they're just trying to make that next best decision, but maybe they can't take a full sabbatical, what would you recommend to them to be able to maybe take that moment and step back and reassess and then make the next decision of how they want to come out on the next step?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I tell people too, Whitney, that people don't have to do it with the same kind of logistical complexity or the gusto that we did it over the course of a year. Ours was a very planned out and a very intentional and thoughtful year that we wanted to do it on. But this is more about a mindset shift than anything else, and whether that happens over the course of a weekend or over a vacation. I did something a couple of years ago that I'd like to get back to, actually, because I just got so much value out of it. Is I did a weekend silent retreat where we showed up at a it was a working monastery. It was an old Benedictine monastery in Alabama, and I got there on a Friday and left on a Sunday, and we were in silence pretty much the entire time. Which
wow.
That to me already felt a little weird, and this is going to drive me crazy if I'm just not saying anything.
That might be hard.
And it was, I will say this, it was such a clarifying weekend.
Interesting.
And it was a faith-based weekend as well. So there was a lot of opportunity for reflection and prayer, and just really quieting the noise. So my encouragement to somebody that's feeling stuck or feeling paralyzed or anything like that is just do what you can on your own self-care to quiet the noise, whatever that looks like, whether it's a day at the lake, whether it's hiking in the mountains, whether it's, doing a silent retreat, whatever the avenue or the outlet is that you would be able to just be introspective and just put your phone down and turn off your distractions for even a temporary period that allow you to think and pray and reflect. And just, in recent years, the prayer that I've been asking is, okay, God, what is it that you want me to know right now? Not about years in the future, not about what's going to happen when Nate turns 18 or Will turns 25 or none of that. Just more of the season that I'm in right now, Lord. What is it that you want me to know right now? And it forces me to not get ahead of myself, because where I see people get stuck and they get paralyzed is they have this pressure of feeling like I got to have it all figured out. No, you don't.
Right.
No, you don't. It's actually quite the opposite. Is what's the next most important thing that I need to focus on? The next most important thing. And then once that's done, what's the next most important thing after that? A lot of people don't know that the word priority was a singular word until the 1900s. So the word was introduced in the English language, I think, in the 1400s. And for 500 and something years, that word was only defined as a singular thing. There could only be one priority, the most important thing, or the next most important thing, or the most important thing that just happened. So that was the English language application of the word priority. We didn't make it plural until the turn of the 1900s. And then by the time World War II was here, we had multiple priorities. And then fast forward into the 60s, 70s, 80s, even now, we have multiple priorities. We wear multitasking as a badge of honor. And all of a sudden we have all these plural priorities. What people forget is priority was never meant to be defined as a multiple or a plural.
Wow.
It was meant to keep us focused on what's the next most important thing.
Wow. So one of the big ways that I'm hearing from that, big takeaways that I'm hearing from that too, Ash, is get quiet so that we can hear God answer the prayers that we're asking him for, right? I mean, you're so right. Sometimes we're so busy, do, go. And I feel like we get frustrated when we don't feel like we hear the answer, but are we really stopping to allow him to speak and then hear? I feel like he can be, oh, what's the saying of like the lies are loud and the truth is quiet. So if just kind of getting in that quiet space to be able to hear the truth over, shall we say, the lies and the loudness.
Here's how insidious that is. I could convince myself of just about anything.
Yes.
I mean, I could probably convince myself and justify about every decision or any decision that I would make. And I would tell you that that's where I get the most sideways is if I'm taking matters into my own hands. It's not, there's the old saying about, asking God to show you what doors are opened. Just by sheer brute force, I will pry any door open.
Right.
I'll take the darn hinges off and put the door to the side and then walk through that door
and say, voila,
and justify that. Well, surely I was supposed to walk through that door when I just spent the last 10 minutes prying the door open.
Yes.
And I think this is where I think it really requires a level of discernment and, again, quieting the noise of just saying, okay, it doesn't matter that the door is open necessarily. Is this the right one for me to walk through? And that requires a level of discernment that also requires a level of patience and obedience and just slowing down a little bit. And we operate in such a fast-paced society and a fast-paced environment today that sometimes it feels like the easier answer is, you know what? I'm just going through.
Yes. I always feel better about the world when I talk to you, Mr. Ash Merchant.
Oh, wow. That's a tall order, lady.
I do. All right. I have two more questions before I let you go. One's going to be easier than the other. If someone's listening and they're like, this is what I need someone to coach me through this. Or just, maybe it's as simple as changing positions and moving throughout their career. Ash, how do they reach out to you and get in contact?
Yeah, listen, my preferred social media handle is LinkedIn. So just look me up, Ash Merchant, Lionheart Partners on LinkedIn, and we'll happy to connect and reference this episode or reference that you heard us have this conversation today. Happy to talk to anyone. My website is lionheart.partners. So no .com after that, just lionheart.partners. And happy to respond to any messages that way as well.
Awesome. So my last question may not be too hard for you. I have a feeling maybe it won't be. The show, this is a question I ask all my guests at the end. And, the show is If I Ever Live to Be. And I love taking something that I take away from the show and kind of making it that title. So one of my favorite examples to use is like brave, because I feel like brave is ongoing. Brave is not one destination. It's something that we have to make it the choice to do every single day. So at the end of the day, when Ash is alone and you're kind of looking over the day and the impact you made, what do you want to be known for? What's that legacy that Ash wants to leave behind?
Wow. That's a great question. I'd say in all that I come into in everyone who I come into contact with every day, whether it's in the marketplace or whether it's with my family or that, I want to be known as somebody who left a positive impact on that person, whether it's through encouragement, whether it's through kindness, whether it's through grace. Whether it's through speaking the truth in love in that moment, but just somebody that people look at and say, you know what, he left a positive impact on me. Maybe I didn't agree with what he said in the way he said it, but nevertheless, he left a positive impact on me.
I love that. Well, and I just told you already do that for me. So
thank you.
So I do. I feel like you accomplish that and leave a positive impact everywhere you go, Ash. So thanks for doing that for us today on the show.
This was a huge pleasure today. So thank you for inviting me, and can't wait to spend some time and continue to see how this show grows. And I've lost count of how many episodes you've got under your belt now. Are we at 70 or where are we?
I was gonna say I have 2. It's so funny because I've got my small group leader at church text me and she's like, yeah, she called out like 45. And I was like, do I really have that many episodes? And that was like months ago. So you're probably right, Ash. At this point, I'm probably somewhere in the 70s on this particular podcast. So I like to say I've been podcasting since before podcasting was cool, because
that's very true. That is very true.
Over the past, if we've known each other coming up on close to 15 years, I've probably done something in the podcast space a little over 10. So it's had different show names, titles, and I've talked about different topics, but
I love it. I love it. Keep it up.
Old.
Keep it up.